Hi everyone, my name is Patricia Muniz and this is my portfolio presentation. I'm really excited to be telling you guys a little bit more about myself today, so let's go ahead and get started. So I was originally born and raised in Puerto Rico, where I grew up doing ballet. I sang in the chorus, I took art classes, I played the violin. But whenever I graduated high school and it was time to declare my major at UNF, I was really confused because I never saw any of those things as career opportunities. And I actually chose to listen to some advice and I chose to go for a biomed major. But it wasn't until 2020 that I realized that I wasn't really motivated or inspired by the major I'd chosen. And I realized I needed to branch out a little bit and try some different things. So in 2021, I ended up in the 3D design class, and I absolutely fell in love with sculpture, and I definitely found my passion and have been pursuing my passion ever since. I ended up declaring sculpture as my major that year when I took 3D design. Um, so some of my inspirations in my work are going to be artists like Frida Kahlo and Karen Lamonte. They create a lot of work inspired by heritage, femininity, um, family. And then I have Christina Bothwell here as well. She creates work kind of relating to the passage of time, aging, the permanence of things. And then, of course, I'm super inspired by my family history, my family lineage, and just how those things have impacted my identity. So then some of the themes in my work are going to be things like heritage and family and how those things impact us, feminism, womanhood, gender identity, gender roles, and like what role we play in our community. And then I also wanted to show you guys kind of a little bit of a sneak peek of my process, or behind the scenes. So we start with the sketches, but depending on the piece, the sketch can kind of take a different form. Sometimes we'll be a little bit more specific versus other times the process will be a bit more intuitive, so the sketch doesn't have to be that specific to the piece. And you can kind of tell when we start the work that the beginning of the work can take a couple of different forms. Depending on what the piece is going to look like, we could start with a maquette, we could start with a mold, we could start with an armature or a file. And then when we get to the point of of creating the work, it's going to be things like casting, printing, welding, cutting. And this is definitely my favorite part of the process. This is when we start seeing the form of things and how things look in the physical world. And then, of course, the final touches are going to be things like painting, polishing, sanding, and just making sure the pieces are ready to go, ready to be documented, ready to be seen. So I wanted to add here kind of like in progress photos of my piece, the Vitruvian Woman that I did for the Seaside Sculpture Park. And you can see how the piece went, from being a maquette to being built in a larger scale, to being powder coated, to then being installed. And this experience was definitely one of the most invaluable experiences I've had at UNF so far. And having this under my belt is one of my greatest accomplishments, but it definitely took me a really long time to get to this point. And I wanted to take us back to one of my first pieces in 2021 titled Plie. So Plie was definitely kind of what got me hooked on sculpture. This piece was one of the first pieces I enjoyed making, from the conception of the idea to the final product. I found the process very meditative, and it definitely is what got me thinking and got those wheels turning in terms of future work. But I think conceptually this piece wasn't there. So then that will bring us to 2022 when I did the 3 ships. After working with plaster in that first piece, I was really excited to kind of get my hands in there some more. And the 3 ships was a piece that I think brought me a step closer to being a bit more conceptual. I started diving into themes of religion and themes of heritage. And then that brings me to my next piece called Women Taking Up Space that I did in 2023 for a group show at Yellow House. This piece definitely took a lot of inspiration from the 3 ships, but ultimately the techniques and concepts in this piece, I think, paved the way for the rest of my work leading up to now. I had a lot of fun making this, and it was one of the first times that I created socio-political work, and I think that really inspired some of my future work. So I wanted to add on here too a series of prints that I did in 2023 that you can kind of see are taking more of the form of the work that I want to create now and create in the future, talking about things like identity, talking about things like tradition, heritage, religion. But then in 2024, when I created It Girl, I kind of strayed away from that just because I was feeling a bit blocked conceptually. And this piece was kind of a way to get back in there and get back to creating without worrying too much about what I was trying to say through the piece. And I think it was really successful because once I finished this piece, I had a really interesting idea that I wanted to create a series of self-portraits. So in 2024, I created the series True Self. And this series definitely dove into kind of identity and how we present ourselves to the world. This is definitely one of my favorite pieces that I worked on so far. I put some in-progress photos as well because I got to make a silicone mold of myself, which was super fun. And then I got to work on this, life-size scale cast of myself, which was pretty eerie, but super cool. And then I wanted to add on here too another piece from that series from True Self. It was the first time I did cast paper and I got to make my own paper pulp and it was super fun. But the series True Self ultimately led me into my current body of work titled The Age of Innocence. So The Age of Innocence is kind of like at this moment in time how my senior show is a way to show everything I've learned and everything we've gone through so far at UNF and the summation of my experience. I wanted to do that kind of with my own life experience and kind of show everything I've been through and the summation of the things that have brought me to this point. So I have an example here from a piece I worked on last year that I'm going to rework into the show. It's called Generations in Play. And I have a little video here if you guys wanted to pause and watch it as well of how the piece looks and how it works. It's an interactive piece. But ultimately, the goals for my current series are going to be just to deep dive into heritage and identity and really explore that concept while also blending traditional and digital techniques into my work. I've recently started working in the digital fabrication world, and that has been super fun. And I really am looking forward to honoring my family and exploring the concept of absence with this series. And then in terms of life after graduation, my plans are to move to New York in January to work under artist Angel Otero, which I'm super duper excited for. And then after that, I'm planning to attend grad school, but I haven't settled on which one yet. And then in terms of long-term goals, I really look forward to creating some more large-scale work, creating more collaborative pieces with other artists, and then eventually I hope to have my own space to work and store my bodies of work. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys stay in touch with me so you can see my current body of work when it's done in December, and I'm really excited to hear you guys' presentations next week. Thank you.